Some stories begin with fame, laughter, and the kind of life that looks perfect from the outside. For Matt Brown, the oldest son of the Brown family from Alaskan bush people, that was exactly how millions of viewers came to know him. He was the rugged eldest brother, the one who helped hold things together when the cameras were rolling. But behind the image the television world carefully constructed was a man quietly fighting a war no audience ever fully witnessed. A war with addiction. A war with isolation. A war with himself. When news broke that Matt Brown had been found dead near the Okanagan River in Washington state, the shock rippled far beyond the world of reality television. He was 43 years old. And as the hours passed and investigators pieced together what had happened along that riverbank, what they reportedly discovered would raise questions that no one who loved him was truly prepared to answer. This is the story of Matt Brown, not the version built for television, but the full and painful truth of a life that ended far too soon. To understand Matt Brown, you have to understand where he came from. He was the firstborn child of Billy and Ami Brown, a couple who chose to raise their family in a manner that was radically different from anything most Americans would recognize. No suburban neighborhood. No steady routine. Instead, the Brown children grew up learning survival skills, building their own shelters, and drawing their identity from the Alaskan wilderness that surrounded them. Matt was the eldest of 7 children. Behind him came Bam Bam, Bear, Gabe, Noah, Bird, and Rain. Each sibling carried their own personality and role within the family, but Matt, as the oldest, occupied a particular kind of importance. He was the trailblazer by default, the one who set the tone. And for a while, at least on screen, he appeared to embrace that responsibility. When Alaskan Bush People premiered on the Discovery Channel in May 2014, it introduced the world to this unconventional family. Audiences were immediately drawn in. There was something magnetic about the Browns, their refusal to conform, their determination to survive off the land, and the bond they seemed to share with one another. The show became a genuine hit, growing into one of Discovery's most watched programs and turning each family member into a recognizable name. Matt was a prominent figure in those early seasons. He was present, engaged, and visible in the way that oldest siblings often are when family takes center stage. Fans rooted for him. They saw a young man who worked hard and loved his family. What they didn't see, what the cameras rarely captured, was the battle that was already beginning to take shape beneath the surface. Reality television is a strange thing. It promises authenticity while simultaneously packaging life into digestible narratives. For the Brown family, that meant moments of genuine hardship were sometimes presented as entertainment. But Matt's struggles were real in a way that no producer could script or soften. Over time, it became increasingly clear that Matt was fighting an addiction to alcohol and other substances. This wasn't a secret within the family. Those closest to him were aware. His brother Bear, who would later become one of the most vocal members of the family, has spoken openly about watching Matt wrestle with these demons for years. He described the fear that comes with loving someone who is battling addiction, the constant tension between hope and dread, the phone calls you both want and are terrified to receive. Addiction does not announce itself neatly. It arrives quietly, takes hold slowly, and by the time its grip is fully understood, it has already changed the shape of a person's life in ways that are hard to reverse. For Matt, the pattern that emerged was a familiar one to families who have walked this road before. Periods of sobriety, followed by relapse, moments of genuine progress interrupted by setbacks that felt devastating precisely because the hope had been so real. By 2019, Matt had stepped away from Alaskan Bush People entirely. His absence from a show that had made him famous was noticeable to longtime viewers. Questions circulated online. Some fans assumed the worst about his relationship with the family. Others simply hoped he was doing better somewhere off-screen. The truth, as Bear would eventually explain, was more complicated and more painful than either assumption. Matt hadn't been pushed away. He had withdrawn. Gradually, quietly, and in the way that people often do when they are ashamed of where they are and uncertain how to return to where they used to be, he had separated himself from the family that loved him. Communication became infrequent. Phone calls replaced visits. Weeks stretched into months between conversations. In the aftermath of Matt's death, Bear would share one memory that has stayed with many who heard it. At some point before the tragedy, the two brothers crossed paths unexpectedly at a Walmart. It wasn't a planned reunion, just a chance encounter in the middle of an ordinary store, the kind of moment that life occasionally throws at people without warning. They didn't spend long together. A few minutes, some words exchanged, and then they parted ways. But the meeting wasn't where the story ended. Shortly after, Matt called Bear. He had something he needed to say. He admitted that he had relapsed. He wasn't calling to be celebrated or consoled in a hollow way. He was calling because he needed someone to know the truth. Bear's response, as he described it, was not to lecture or express disappointment. Instead, he told his brother that setbacks were part of the process. He reminded Matt that relapse didn't erase the progress he had made or the strength he had demonstrated before. He encouraged him to get back on the path, to seek help, to keep fighting. The message was simple and direct: don't give up. That phone call was their last. Bear has said that he never spoke to Matt again after that conversation. Whatever happened in the days and weeks that followed, whatever decisions were made, whatever darkness settled in, it unfolded without another chance for the brothers to connect. That silence became permanent in a way neither of them could have anticipated when they said goodbye. The events that led to the discovery of Matt Brown's body began when emergency services in Okanagan County, Washington, received a call about a man near the river. A witness reported seeing a man sitting in shallow water. They looked away briefly. When they looked back, the man was face down in the water, being carried by the current. Law enforcement, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel responded quickly. A search of the river began. Hours passed without answers. Bear, during this painful period of uncertainty, spoke publicly and openly. He told fans that he had received troubling reports from the area and that authorities were actively searching. He could not yet confirm what had happened, but his voice carried the weight of a man bracing himself for news he didn't want to receive. Then came a detail that would intensify public attention around the case. Investigators reportedly discovered a firearm at the location near the river. Authorities did not release the identity of the individual involved at that point, and the investigation was ongoing. The discovery raised immediate questions that the family and law enforcement were not yet in a position to answer. When the body recovered from the Okanagan River was officially identified as Matt Brown, the uncertainty ended and grief began. Bear shared the news with the public in an emotional video. He confirmed that their younger brother Noah had been among those who helped recover the body from the water, and that Noah was the first family member to make the identification. It was a burden that no sibling should carry. And it was the moment that the phone calls and the Walmart encounter and all the years of worry became memories rather than chapters in an ongoing story. In the hours and days that followed, Bear made a point of speaking directly to the millions of fans who had grown up watching the Brown family on television. His message was not angry or bitter. It was a plea for basic human decency. He asked people to think carefully before posting online. He reminded viewers that the individuals they watch on television screens are real human beings with real families and real pain. He pointed particularly to their mother, Ami, who is now facing the loss of her eldest child, a grief that sits in a category all its own. Bear wanted fans to show compassion, not just toward Matt's memory, but toward the living people who were doing their best to hold themselves together in the aftermath of something shattering. The Brown family later released a longer statement that offered a different kind of portrait of Matt, one built not from headlines or tragedy, but from memory and love. They describe a man with a natural curiosity about the world. Someone who loved the outdoors, who had real skill as a fisherman and outdoorsman, who spent time creating art, who could make people laugh without trying. They spoke about the kindness that existed beneath the battles he faced. The way he tried, even during his own darkest periods, to encourage others who were struggling. They acknowledged openly that Matt had spent years dealing with serious addiction and mental health challenges. They didn't try to sanitize it or minimize it, but they also made clear that those struggles were not the full story of who he was. He was a son, a brother, an uncle, a friend. He was someone who touched lives in ways that most people would never read about in any news article. The tragedy of Matt Brown is not a simple story with a clean lesson. Addiction is complicated. Recovery is not a straight line. The people who love someone fighting these battles carry their own invisible weight, the fear, the hope, the helplessness, the grief that arrives before the person is even gone. What the events along the Okanagan River ultimately revealed was not just the circumstances of one man's death. They revealed the gap between how people appear in public and who they are in private. They revealed how easily someone can become isolated from the people who love them most, even without anyone choosing that outcome. And they revealed how quickly a life can reach its final chapter, while those on the outside are still hoping for a different ending. Matt Brown spent years trying to fight his way back to something stable. He wasn't always winning, but he kept trying, and for long stretches that effort made a difference, not only in his own life, but in the lives of others who heard him speak honestly about his struggles and felt less alone because of it. The Brown family has asked the public to remember him fully. Not as a cautionary tale, not as a tragedy, but as a person who was deeply loved, who had real gifts and real flaws, and whose absence has left a space in the lives of